You know that feeling, right? Like you're trying to get a handle on something important, maybe the real estate market.
Oh, yeah.
And everywhere you look, it's just conflicting headlines, national trends that might not even apply where you are. It's
Oh.
total information overload.
It really is. It
And
makes finding clarity, well, incredibly difficult. Those national narratives can feel miles away from what's actually happening, on the ground,
right,
street by street.
exactly. And that's kind of where this deep dive comes in. We try to take one specific source, unpack it a bit, and pull out the core insights for you.
Hmm.
So today, we're zeroing in on a market that gets, well, a lot of attention, Sarasota, Florida.
Right. And the source we're looking at today, it offers a pretty distinct take. It's a piece titled Sarasota Real Estate Opportunity Now.
Opportunity now. Okay, that's a pretty strong statement, wouldn't you say? Especially with all the chatter about rising interest rates and, market uncertainty.
It definitely stands out.
So this source is basically arguing that despite those factors, maybe now is actually a smart time for buyers looking in Sarasota.
Yeah, it's really focused on trying to cut through that general market noise by highlighting specific local conditions there.
Okay, so let's dive into how the source actually makes that case. It seems to hinge on a few key points, right? Starting with the state of inventory.
Right. The piece really emphasizes that active listings in Sarasota, they've seen a significant jump lately, especially compared to the last few years.
And this is where it gets specific with data. According to MLS figures and some analysis from Altos Research that the article mentions, active listings are up more than 30% year over year.
Over 30%, yeah. I mean, think about what that actually means if you're out there looking in Sarasota.
Right.
That huge increase in inventory, it directly translates to less intense competition, compared to those really frantic years we just saw.
So you're not necessarily battling like 10 cash offers the second a house hits the market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Which means, well, less competition also means more choice.
More choice. Yeah. More homes to look at, more neighborhoods maybe.
Yeah.
It gives you a chance to actually breathe and evaluate things.
Which felt kind of impossible not that long ago.
Totally.
So alongside that increased inventory, the source also points to another key factor: price adjustments happening.
Price cuts. Okay.
Right.
How common are we talking here?
Well, the article cites data, again from Altos Research, via Housing Wire actually, showing that nearly 40% of active listings in Sarasota have had a price reduction.
Wow. Nearly 40%. Okay. Now, the source isn't framing this like some kind of market crash, though, is it? It sounds more like a shift.
It presents it more as a course correction, yeah. And the argument is that this is where the opportunity lies for a buyer.
Right.
This kind of environment, it potentially gives you negotiating power that just wasn't there before.
Power you didn't have a year or two ago.
Right. And that could be on the final price, sure, but also maybe on things like, closing dates, seller contributions towards closing costs, maybe even repair credits, stuff like that.
Okay, so you've got more homes available, less competition breathing down your neck, and maybe some room to negotiate on price and terms.
Yeah.
But what about the elephant in the room? The higher cost of borrowing right now. That's still a big hurdle.
It absolutely is. And that's where the source brings in its strategy for playing the long game. It sums it up with a phrase: marry the home, date the rate.
Marry the home, date the rate. Huh. That's catchy, memorable. What's the core idea there?
Well, the thinking is basically to prioritize securing the right property now, especially when you have maybe less competition and these price adjustments working in your favor.
Okay.
You buy the home you really want, knowing the current mortgage rate might be higher than you'd ideally like.
Yeah.
But you go in with the intention, the plan, to refinance later if and when rates eventually decrease.
Gotcha. So lock in the actual property, the physical asset, in a desirable spot, and then plan to adjust the financing part down the road if it makes sense.
Exactly. And the source ties this into the fundamental demand for the area, too. It notes that, Florida is still a top state for relocation. And Sarasota's lifestyle appeal, the beaches, the arts, the whole vibe, it keeps drawing people in.
So the demand is likely to stay strong long term.
That's the argument. Securing a home there now, even with a higher initial rate, means you've got the asset in place for potential future value. And maybe just as importantly, you get to start living that lifestyle now without maybe the intense bidding war headaches of the recent past.
Okay, let's just quickly recap the main argument we pulled from this source about the Sarasota market right now. It's basically suggesting that these current conditions, significantly higher inventory over 30% year over year, according to MLS and Altos Research.
Right.
And a really high percentage of price cuts, nearly 40% of active listings, per altos via housing wire.
Yeah, that combination.
That combination creates a potential window of opportunity for buyers.
It frames these conditions as advantageous. Less competition, more choices, and potentially increased negotiating power.
And the recommended approach is that long game strategy, the marry the home, date the rate.
Exactly. Focus on getting the property now, plan to refinance later if rates improve.
And all this is kind of underpinned by the belief in Sarasota's strong ongoing appeal and Florida's growth, suggesting demand isn't going away.
Right. Sustained demand long term. So this deep dive, it really gave us one specific data-backed perspective on how a buyer might look at the current situation in this particular market. It offers a kind of framework for navigating it.
Okay, so for you, the listener, maybe here's something to think about. Based on this source's view of inventory, those price adjustments, and that long-term approach, how do you personally weigh the very real cost of financing a home at today's interest rates against the potential upsides this source highlights, like getting more choice, facing less competition, maybe having some negotiating power, and ultimately securing the property and the lifestyle you want in a place like Sarasota right now, all with the hope or plan of refinancing down the line?